Hi, my name is Travis Bailey. I'm going to be your new teacher. Elena asked me to speak a couple minutes about myself and introduce myself to you. Um, Once again, my name's Travis Bailey. This is my dog, my Texas girl. Come here. This is Kanopka. Kanopka, say hello. She came with me from America, and she's been here with me for the past 4 months here in Moscow. And she's going to be coming with me to your city. Right now I'm in Butova, and I will be there in hopefully this month and at the latest at the beginning of next month. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I think I mentioned I've taught English in both Ukraine and D.C. I grew up in Idaho. It's a small state of about 1 million people that borders Idaho. And I tell people it's close to Las Vegas, but that's not really the case. I had an average childhood. I grew up in a very conservative family that had a lot of different problems, but I grew up Mormon, and Mormons tend to be very conservative, very patriotic, and very anti-communist during my childhood, and I never felt fit in at all. I'm the proud product of polygamy. My great grandfather actually was one of the founders of a church called Mormonism. His name was Orson Pratt, and he came up with some of the most radical ideas of Mormonism. For example, that you could become a god, and some just really interesting beliefs. I grew up in that belief system as a child on my family farm, which my great-grandfather had cleared out the sagebrush in the high desert, and he had built our family farm. We had a dairy farm. My dad was a dairy farmer. My mom was a school teacher. I never, like I said, I think I said, I never really fit in there. I always felt like a city boy at heart. The biggest experience that I had as a child was when I was 10 years old. I actually died. It was in summer. I shouldn't be alive. It's a miracle that I'm actually alive. I grew up in Idaho. Both parents, 4 younger brothers. When I was 20, I went on a mission for my church. It was a 2-year mission, and then I came back and I stopped believing. I started studying the church, this naive notion that if it was true, then if I studied more, then I would learn more. And within 5 years, while I was going to college, I became atheist. That was my first, what sociologists call a paradigm shift. I was engaged at the time to be married, and she wanted to settle down in rural Utah. I had just got my bachelor's degree, or was about to, but I decided instead to go to Malta, and that was my first country of 5 that I lived in. I lived in Malta for 9 months. I returned to America. I got my bachelor's degree in 1999. After I got my bachelor's degree, I immediately went into the Peace Corps. Ukraine felt right. I don't know why it felt right. I had a choice of which region to choose. I chose Eastern Europe. I ended up in Odessa for 2.5 years. It was really a social blooming for me. I'd always been shy as a child. And the thing about Odessa was it really made me realize how incredible the Russian people were and the potential that I had. Before that time, like I said, I'd been really shy and I'd never really been happy. And when I first came there, I met a woman who had been to America, and she said describing America was like describing the taste of sugar to somebody that's never tasted sugar. How can you describe something that nobody's ever had before? And that's kind of like how I felt about Ukraine, is that before that I'd never really tasted sugar. Before I'd been introduced to Russians and Ukrainians, I never had lived. I was there as a business consultant. I wrote a book and published it. I worked with the United States Navy and Coast Guard to build orphanages, and I taught English, and I got grants, built computer labs, did remodeling projects for the internaut Cherry and other internauts in the Salvation Army. It was a beautiful experience. In February, Valentine's Day 2001, I met my ex-wife now, Babishka. I can't remember the name in Russian. I never can. Not Stary Jenshina. That's wrong. But my ex-wife. And I was going from one date to another. I had 2 dates on Valentine's Day, and I met her on a marshutka. And we hit it off immediately. We were together for 3 weeks before she moved in with me, and we lived together for a year and a half. I loved her, but I was so worried that she wasn't really the one for me. But I couldn't bear leaving her. She was making $100 a month in a gas station, surviving by stealing money from some of her customers. And she had a child who was in another city, Uman, to the north, living with the grandmother in a dacha. The dacha, though, was terrible. It had no running water, it had no telephone, and it was just a terrible situation. And I felt like I should help her. And so I came up with the idea of having a fake marriage. And so we actually did get married, and we came back to the United States after my Peace Corps service, and we got married. And she didn't know English for the first 2 years, and as you'll find out very quickly, my Russian's never been very good. But it was the most incredible relationship I had, strangely enough. I think communication in a relationship is overrated. Yeah, so that was my first introduction to Russia and to Ukraine, and I just fell in love with the people. In September 2001, I had some friends that were Muslim, and they were Uman Muslims, and they were the most incredible, gentle, wonderful, kind men I'd ever met in my entire life. I was just shocked at how incredible they were, and even at the time there was a lot of discrimination towards Arabs, and a lot of fear towards Arabs, even before 9/11. But these men were so incredible. They were everything that the media said that they weren't. And 9/11 happened, and after that, I remember talking to one of my friends, and they said how they wanted to kill us, and what they meant by us is Americans. And I was just shocked. I mean, how could the most gentle, kind person want to kill Americans? Because after all, we were the most incredible country in the world. We were the most strongest nation in the world. We gave the world this beautiful gift of democracy, and all we did was good. Why would this beautiful man who I'd loved so much want to kill us? And at that point, I really started to become interested in American foreign policy, and I continued to start studying American foreign policy while I was in Ukraine. When I returned to America with my stepson, who at the time was 8 years old, and my wife, I worked in Utah, and then I moved to Texas. And in Texas, I got my law degree. and then I also got a master's degree in international relations. And I really started studying the American system, and I started to realize that this system that I grew up with this naive ideology, was completely untrue. So we moved from Texas to a law firm in Washington D.C., and I worked in Washington D.C. And then 3 years ago in 2012, our marriage abruptly ended, to say the least. And I was working in this law firm, and I quit the law firm, and I started my own practice. And at the time, I started to get more kind of spiritual. See, Americans, they talk about spirituality a lot more. They're a lot more open about their feelings publicly. They talk about religion openly. They're more willing to make mistakes, according to my Russian friends. They're just a more open people in general, like publicly open. They're actually very hard to get to know, and they're very closed, much more closed than Americans, on a deeper level. But on a superficial, like public level, they're very open. And so I may be saying things that you're not used to people talking about, but it's just kind of normal in my culture. So in Washington D.C., I quit my job, my legal job, and I started my own law firm, and it was going really well, and I was doing really good. But every single day I woke up and I would think about Ukraine, and I think about Russia, and how much I loved those people, and how I felt a part of something bigger when I was in Ukraine. And I'd never felt that in my entire life in America. I'd never really fit into this very rigid religious culture, and Washington D.C. was very very depressing in a lot of ways. People were so busy with their careers, and they were never really focused on each other. The movies, American is the most sophisticated propaganda system in the world. It's the most powerful and richest country in the world. It's well deserved, but it's got a lot of problems that you don't really see in the movies. Our depression rate is 20 times higher than the depression rate of any other country in the world. Our incarceration is people going to jail, is the highest per capita of any other country in the world. It's ironic that we are supposed to be the freest country in the world with freedom, yet we have more people in prison. And we also are the most violent country in the world. We've killed 6 million people since World War II. These are things you don't hear about in movies and with American propaganda. And these are things that I learned. The information's all there, but most Americans just don't care. As long as they are making money and pursuing the American dream of a house and a car, they don't care. They don't care that we have 5% of the population, but we have 25% of the people in the world in prison. 25% of the world's population of prisoners, and there's a real big gap between rich and poor. And this is not what you're going to see on television. This is not what you're going to see on movies and in music and in American propaganda. But I was unhappy. I had a house, a big, really big house, a beautiful house in Washington, D.C. Had a very stable job, had a car, but I was divorced, and I was lonely. And I started to become very spiritual, not more Buddhist, which is kind of like a way of living. but I wasn't finding what I wanted there, and so I decided to come here to Russia, and it was a really wide awakening to me because I thought that Moscow was going to be like Odessa, Ukraine. Um, Talk about naive. Moscow is like Washington D.C. Everybody's trying to go west, and I'm trying to go east. I was on television with Ren TV, and one of the things I said that I was just looking for a Siberian wife, and I originally wanted to go to Siberia because I wanted to get away from the Western influence. I didn't want the feminism. I didn't want the materialism. I didn't want the individualism. I wanted the sense of community and the sense of family that I had as a child growing up, but there was a cost to being that way in America, or in my culture, my Mormon culture. You actually had to be religious, and you had to believe, and you had to be conservative, and I was none of those things. Um, for several years I was atheist, and then I became kind of Buddhist now. But I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to teach. I learned so much from teaching. I love my students. That's the best part of everything. It's not the paperwork, of course, and it's not the administrators or the other teachers. It's just those students, and I love connecting with people. I've ever since I quit my job with the federal government, that the law job in 2013, I've had several life coaches, what I call gurus, and they've taught me a spiritual side, and that intuition, that ability to feel other people. It's just so very important to me, and I'm excited to be here. And Ellen opened her heart to me and her family to me, and she allowed me to be on New Year's Day to come to her flat and spend time with her, and it was like being back in Ukraine again. It was the most wonderful experience that I'd thought about every single day since I left Odessa, Ukraine. And I have no illusions. I mean, I'm not part of her family, but it gave me a taste of what it was like to be a part of a community, a family, and a tribe again. And that's what I'm here for. And I couldn't find that in Moscow. Moscow's too Western. It's too individualistic. It's too selfish. I'm looking for a family, and I'm looking for a tribe, and I'm just so excited to be a teacher here. It just feels right. It's yeah, so it feels right, and so I'm excited to meet you. I'm excited to teach you all these silly idioms and phrasal verbs and all these wonderful things and nuances about English. But more importantly, I just want to get to know you. I want to get to know your likes and your dislikes, and I want to get to know who you are as a person, and get to share your culture while I share mine, because there's so many wonderful things about America. There's terrible things about America, but there's so many wonderful things too, and I want to give you that experience. I want to share that with you. The beauty of America and the beauty of our people, and at the same time I want to get to know you. And so I'm really excited to be your teacher. I'm excited to bring Kanopka, my ex-wife named Kanopka, my dog. I'm excited to bring her to your small town, your little Kremlin, and I look forward to it. So as soon as I can, if I could tomorrow, I'd move there. I have another job right now. I'm committed to this job, and so I need to kind of finish up everything here. But as soon as I can, I will definitely be there, and I'm just looking forward to the opportunity. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing your story. Have a wonderful and warm January.